Hello everyone. Let us see how to create sunlight and sun rays in Photoshop. So let us start. Here we have an image of a forest. So what we'll be doing is we'll be first creating sunlight in this forest. To create sunlight, we need to go to filter, and here we have an option render, and in render we have the option lens flare. So we can just create a lens flare effect, and we'll create on the top right side. We can increase the brightness if we want, and make sure that we select the lens type as 105 mm prime. Right, so with this particular values, we will just confirm this lens flare effect or lens flare filter. Right, so here we can see a lot of sunlight is coming, and we will be creating sun rays from this place, from the top right corner. Right, so now we'll take a new layer above this sunlight or forest layer, and we will now create some rectangles. So here what we'll do is we will just select hard square brushes. So here we have the hard square brush, and I will be selecting hard square 14 pixels. Right, so now we have to just create these brush strokes and make sure that the flow and opacity values are 100%, and we will just change the foreground color to pure white. So now let's create the brush strokes. So we need to create the brush strokes in different sizes, and also let's keep them a little bit close. So something like this. So if you have more brush strokes, it will be more realistic, and we can also slightly rotate some of the brush strokes. So we can use shift and right or left arrow keys to rotate them slightly. Right. So once we have created these many brush strokes, so the next step is we have to apply a filter. So let's go to filter, and in filter we need to select the blur, and in blur we have to select radial blur. So let us select radial blur. So once we select the radial blur, we can see the amount here. Amount has to be maximum 100, and the blur method has to be zoom, and the quality has to be best. And most important setting here is the blur center. So right now the blur center is at the top right corner. We can change its direction. We can keep it top right, top left, or at the center. So wherever we want we can place, but the best position for us is top right corner. So we have to keep it like this. Right, and now we need to confirm this. Simply we'll click OK, and we can see here. straight away we can see some rays. Right. The next thing we are supposed to do is we will try to intensify these rays. Right now the rays are appearing mild. We have to make them more intense. So we need to take the duplicate of this layer. So just take a duplicate of the layer, and now the rays are more intense. And the next thing we'll do is we'll select both these layers, and what we'll do is we will just activate the transform tool. Right, and we can just drag to extend these rays till the ground here. Right, now this looks fine, and we can we can also do one more thing, that is we can just select the individual layer, and here we have the option warp. So we will just use the warp here, so that the rays are properly positioned. We need to position the rays properly. Right, and we will do the same thing for another rays. So we can just adjust it properly using the warp tool, and the warp tool appears only if we select the transform tool. Right. It should look like these rays are coming from the sun. Right. Then we can take some more duplicates here, and we can also just move them a little bit to the side, and also we will activate the warp tool again, and then we can just change their position. Right, this looks better. And now what we can do is we can just merge these three layers. Right, and the next thing we can do is we can also just intensify these rays again, just by taking one more duplicate, and also we can slightly reduce the opacity here, so that it looks more realistic. Right, now this looks better. Right, so the next thing is, when the rays are coming from the sun, the ground should also illuminate. The places where the rays are falling, those parts also should illuminate. So what we are going to do now is, we'll first apply a curves adjustment layer, and we will just reduce the brightness. So now the rays are clearly visible. Right. Then the next thing we'll do is, see here we can see the ground, but right now the ground is not illuminating. So we will try to illuminate the ground. So for that, what we are going to do is, we'll just take a new layer above the rays layers, and we will use a brush, and we will select a soft rounded brush this time. And then what we are going to do is, we will change the blending mode to color dodge, and we will increase the size of the brush, and we will also reduce the flow value. Let's keep it around 35%, and then we can just check here how the rays are appearing here, or how the light is appearing here. So we can see here there is some light on the ground, but we want the light to be more intense. So for that, what we are going to do is we will just double click on this layer to open the layer styles, and in the layer styles we have an option transparency shapes layer. So right now this option is turned on. We will turn off this option. So what will happen is, the places where the rays are falling, it will illuminate. So just check here. So see here, these places are now illuminating. And in case we think that the lighting is too much, we can slightly reduce the flow value. So we can see here, so something like this, right? So we don't have to make it too artificial. This looks better, right? And we can also slightly reduce the adjustment or the curves adjustment values, so that it looks more bright, right? And one last thing we can do here is, we will now group these layers, the rays layers. We can rename the group as rays, right? And with less flow value, we will select the same square brushes. So we'll just select the same square brush, right? And what we can do is, we can apply a mask to this rays group, just a mask, and we can keep black as the foreground color, and we can increase the size of this brush, and we can just click here, so that there will be some transition here. So we can just click here and make sure that the flow value is very less, right? Now the rays are looking realistic, and in case we want to make them more intense, we can always duplicate this group. So something like this, but it doesn't look nice, so let's keep it like this. And we can also do one thing, we can slightly stretch them in case we are not satisfied with the rays or satisfied with the width of the rays. We can slightly stretch them, so something like this. So this is how we can create a rays in Photoshop, artificial rays in Photoshop. And one last thing we will do is, we can also just create an artificial fog, so that it will enhance the rays effect even further. Here we will just select the gradient, and we can see here we can also change the angle of this gradient, so something like this. And we can also just reduce the opacity of this fog, right? So something like this, slightly, this much is okay, right? And then we will just reduce the brightness a little bit, so that it looks more realistic. And we can also do one more thing, the color dodge brightness is too much, so we will also reduce its opacity, right? So this is how we can create rays in Photoshop. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please do like, subscribe, share, and if you have anything to say, do comment. See you again.